Hello, ladies. So this month I'm going to take you through a bit of a special warm-up because a lot of the workouts and the exercises that we're going to do throughout the month are very corrective based, and I want you to have a really in-depth understanding of the muscles that I'm talking about as we go through the different exercises, but also why they're so beneficial to you. So we're going to go through a bit of a different warm-up, and I hope that you guys can do this certainly every day that you work out, but potentially even on days that you are not working out, but just need a little bit of movement. Um, the keys to this are going to be a couple of different muscles that we haven't really talked too much about or really worked that much. And then also, getting the glute activation as per usual, but a lot of breath work and lower abdomen. Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of issues with low back pain, knee pain, all of those typical things that have come up that we've been trying to work on and sort of improve through breath work and that kind of thing over the past couple of years now. But to really make sure that you have an understanding of what you can activate in order to help these things a little bit further. Okay, so what we're going to be working on specifically throughout this warm up, and what I want you to be thinking about as you go through these exercises, is a muscle, first of all, called the serratus, which we're going to do a lot to try and warm up, to activate, so that you can feel it and use that muscle memory as you work through some of the other exercises that we're going to be doing. Okay, so the serratus muscle, just going to lift this up a touch, is like a finger looking muscle that comes kind of down here, and you can almost feel it activate from the armpit and come across the front of the rib cage. Okay, so it's one of these things where it becomes really inactive as we're sitting around and whatever, and all of this takes over, and we get the weirdo hunchback and all of this kind of stuff because we don't have a lot of activation through here and through the scapula, the shoulder blades at the back. Okay, so that's number one, what we're going to turn on. Number two, what I want you to consider and be thinking about through all of your exercises is using, yes, your breath work. So as I breathe in, I want my belly to come out really, really, really big as far as I can get it. And there should be a press down on your pelvic floor as you breathe in that way. So I'm breathing in, I'm releasing through my pelvic floor, almost like I was going to let go and go pee or something. And then as I exhale, there's a feeling of my hip bones coming together this way and my pubic bone coming up vertically towards my navel, okay? So as you do that, there's a real tightening, and I should almost feel my glutes automatically kicking in as I do that. Right? You see the glute fire once I pull pubic bone to navel. So these are two cues that I'm going to be giving you throughout these exercises. And I'll show you how to activate this serratus. But the feeling is almost like you start things, you initiate things from the armpit, and it starts to get some of these muscles right around here to start firing, okay? So when I talk about moving from the armpit or starting from the armpit, I really want you to imagine if you can feel from right here initiating a lot of your movements, okay? The second thing that I will tell you a lot is to bring pubic bone to navel, okay? There's a support system here, and it's not navel to spine, right? I'm not sucking in this way. I'm pulling up from here, from the pubic bone, up vertically towards the navel, okay? So two big things that we're going to be talking about as we move through this. Okay, so first we're going to be grabbing our foam roller. I want you to place it right basically underneath the bra line, all right? We're going to cradle the hands in the head, elbows pointing up. If this is uncomfortable for your shoulders, go ahead and move them, but ideally we want to have these elbows pointing up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to breathe in into my belly, and as I exhale, I'm going to keep my rib cage nice and low, and I'm going to allow my head to come backwards. I'm going to breathe in. I'm going to exhale, keeping my rib cage pressed down, and come back as far as I can. Once you've done it a few times at one location, just pop the foam roller up a little bit higher and move through this way. You want to go all the way until it kind of feels a little bit weird and awkward at the top of your shoulders. So if I got to about here, it just kind of hurts my shoulder blades and I don't really feel like doing it anymore. That's when you know you want to stop and you just come right back down. Now, the point of this is not to sit and put a big arch in your lower back and let your ribs flare up towards the ceiling, because that's the difference between moving through the lower back, so moving through right here, and getting this movement that we want to through the thoracic spine, okay? So we're looking from here up, not the lumbar and not up here. We want sort of the mid-back from bra line up to start getting a little bit of mobility, okay? So go all the way up in one direction, then we're gonna come back down. The next thing I want you to do is take your foam roller, and we're going to be working right through here, okay? So I'm going to pop the foam roller under the armpit and sort of back a little bit. So it's basically where the scapula, that shoulder blade, comes to an end is where we want to try to foam roll. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my top hand to just cradle my head so my neck doesn't start to complain. I'm going to move through here, and then if you can and it feels comfortable, some of you might have a lot of pain, we're going to lift the arm up and I'm going to foam roll through the back of the arm that way. Okay? Then we're going to go ahead and switch sides and do the same thing on the opposite side. Okay? So once you've done that on the opposite side, I'll go through this with you just so that you have the timing of it on this video. So I'm going to go through right where the scapula ends on the side there and down a little bit lower. So you can go into the rib cage wherever you feel a sore spot that makes you want to cry, then you want to kind of stay on that and work that out. So again, I'm going to lift my one arm up. So I'm going to see if you guys can see this here. And foam roll through there. Once I'm done that, I'm going to turn it on a diagonal. And I'm going to, let me see, make sure you guys can see this. Pop that down a little bit. I'm going to place it right between my chest and my shoulder. So I'm going to pop it in that spot, and I'm going to foam roll right in that tight spot where the shoulder connects to the chest. Okay? A lot of pec minor in this as we go. So I'm going to turn that over. I'm going to do the other side. And feel free to stay in these a little bit longer if you want to. Okay, so once we're done that, finish with the foam roller. Now I want you to come up if you have your chin-up bar or something similar. If you just have a railing or something like that, you can do that too just from sitting. But what we're going to do is a hanging release. So all I do is I'm going to sit here, I'm going to allow myself to hang, and I want to feel that release through the shoulder blades and up through the top of the rib cage a little bit. So it's called a hanging release. I'm just letting, and you don't even have to put your whole weight if you don't want to, depending on how fragile your shoulders and chest and back feel. If you're really tight sitting at a desk all the time, I might take a little bit of time with this because you might find that the muscles through the rib cage can get tender and inflamed. So just let yourself ease into it. If you're ready to let your whole body weight go, go ahead and do that. But just let this release happen through the muscles, through your lats, through your chest, and through your rib cage. Keep the ribs nice and low. And let that just go ahead and stretch out. So next I'm going to move on to an overhead breathing exercise. So all I'm going to do is pop my foam roller up over my head. My forearms are going to press into the foam roller. My hips are going to remain low. My rib cage is going to remain low. So you might want to feel a little bit of a pubic bone to navel so that the rib cage doesn't come up. I'm going to press into the foam roller sort of as hard as I can with my forearms. Now, notice when you do that, if I just relax, I don't feel too much through my rib cage. But if I press down, I should start to feel this muscle we've been talking about, the serratus, engage. So I'm going to press down, engage that serratus muscle. I'm going to breathe into my belly, and as I exhale, a little bit of pubic bone to navel. Breathe into that, let the belly inflate, and then pubic bone to navel. Make sure that you keep the back of your neck nice and long. Collarbone remains relaxed, jaw remains relaxed. Now this might seem a little bit easy and you might think, oh, I don't want to do this, but I really want you to start doing that to begin to engage your serratus muscle, obviously to continue your breathing properly, but to really make sure that you have an understanding and you can feel where this comes from, and you start to keep the rib cage down as we're going through our exercises. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and grab a dumbbell. I'm going to show you this from the side view. I want you to start with your arm nice and straight. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to be lifting this dumbbell up, all right? But I'm going to lift it up over my face. So it's not going to come straight up. It's going to come up over my face on a bit of a diagonal plane of motion, all right? So come down and up over my face. And what I want you to think about as you're doing that is lifting from your armpit. So if you could only use the muscles right through here, okay? If you could only use that, that's what you're going to lift with. So it's almost like you're imagining starting lifting from your armpit. And if I had my pinky finger out and there was a laser that was coming from my armpit and out my pinky finger, so I'm really stretching my pinky finger and up right above my face to shoot a target on the ceiling above my face, that's what I want you to consider, okay? And so I'm going to lower down. I'm going to start from the armpit, lift up through the armpit, up towards my face and down. And that's the movement. Now what we're doing here is activating this armpit type muscle that starts here and sort of comes down, loops around in front of the rib cage, the serratus, all right? So we're lifting up, feeling this muscle, feeling all really something engaged right in front of the rib cage, and then coming down. So the key is up over the face. If you just bring it up here, you're not going to feel it the same way. Okay, so up over the face, feel that armpit, drop down. So next I'm going to come into a version of a breathing exercise, and we're going to incorporate a Y movement into this. So I want you to come into a split half kneel. We're going to start with our breathing, of course. So I want you to breathe into the belly. I'm just going to turn around here so that you can see. I'm going to breathe into my belly. As I exhale, I'm pulling pubic bone up to navel, and the sheer force of me pulling the pubic bone up to the navel is giving me a nice big stretch here through my hip, okay? So I'm going to breathe in, nice and big. As I breathe out, pull, draw pubic bone right up to navel in a vertical plane of motion, and then let go. So you might notice as you pull up, again, the glute starts to fire. So this is a nice warm-up. We're just teaching our body how we want it to move and what we want to fire, okay? So go ahead and do that several times on one side, then we'll switch sides. Again, breathing in. As I breathe out, pubic bone to navel, and really pull it up until you feel that tension, that stretch through the hip on that side. Pull it up, stretch it out. So as you breathe in, you should feel pelvic floor let go. Back of the head can be nice and long. Chin tucked just a little bit. Okay, so start to release where you need to, start to activate where you need to as you're going through that motion. The second thing that I want to add into this motion is now to add in a Y movement. So when I do the Y, I want you to think about your thumbs going up behind you and coming right into a Y. So not straight overhead, but in this Y position. So even we're going to do this from a half kneel, but what I want you to consider again is not to let the back arch. So we're not trying to do this as we do the Y and let the ribs flare out. We're going to keep pubic bone to navel. We're going to keep the ribs nice and low, and this movement is coming from my scapula in the back. My shoulder blades are moving, so I shouldn't feel a lot going on through neck and shoulders, all right? So let's go ahead and pop this probably about there. Okay, I'm coming into my half kneel. I'm going to breathe. As I exhale, pubic bone comes up to navel, and I do my Y. Be very purposeful with the Ys. Go ahead and switch sides, so do about 8 or 10. Feeling the shoulder blades moving at the back and the perfect alignment coming from the front.